Hello, pretty people. We are nearing the end of our BUTTMAM journey together.
Aww.
But luckily, it's not quite time to say goodbye just yet. In this 17th part of our Shapes.io series, I wanted to talk to you about a thing that I have come to call the lifeline of this machine. I am not really sure how adequate of a name that is, to be honest, but since I've made a habit of calling it that, that's the term I will stick with, okay? Now, whereas in other episodes we usually focused on a particular module within the machine, today we will be moving around the factory a bit more, so I would like to suggest you take another good look at the wiring and the locations of the different modules relative to each other, so that when we are zoomed in later and I am moving around the machine, you will stay oriented, right? So here is the analysis bit of the wiring module. Now, what is the lifeline? Well, it's this long stretch of wiring located at the top of the machine. It's the wiring's ceiling, if you will, from which the cycler modules are suspended. And it performs two roles. Firstly, it's responsible for initiating the rotation mechanism in case it turns out that the fast lane module hasn't found a quick solution and it is therefore necessary to start, trying one candidate after the other. The lifeline will be the mechanism that, initiates that rotation, that alternation. And the second function is, do you know the I am feeling lucky button on the Google homepage? Well, it's kind of like that. The lifeline is going to preemptively select a set of floating pieces and it will just try them out. And the reasoning is this. Imagine that the machine finds a quad float within the shape. Well, actually, chances are pretty high that quad float will be one of the pieces required to construct the final shape with. And in the majority of cases where a quad float candidate can be found, there will be only one of those anyway. So the machine will immediately pick it out and line it up. And the same reasoning applies to the other kinds of floating pieces as well. So in essence, the lifeline just makes a preliminary candidate pick, which in some cases will already find the correct piece lineup. If the attempt is unsuccessful, then that lineup will be the one from which the entire cycling mechanism kicks off. Alright, so then, how does it work? Well, let me input a shape that will be illustrative for today's purposes. I disconnected the lifeline in preparation of this video, so that when I input this shape, we will be in a situation where the shape is too complex for the fast lane module to find a solution, and the lifeline should kick in, but it doesn't because I disconnected it. Okay, so I'm going to connect the shape. There we go. And the candidates that you see lined up at the moment, those are simply the ones you get when you unstack each layer from the shape. And since I also disconnected the anti-jank device, the machine will stay idle like this indefinitely as long as we don't, do anything with it. So, what I would like to do now is we're going to zoom out again. I'm going to go to the wiring layer, and then I'm going to move to the top left-hand side of my machine. There we go. And we have an incoming copy of the final shape. And when we follow that to the top, that is where, the entire lifeline procedure starts. So again, the lifeline is this, this horizontal band located at the top, and we are at the very left edge of it. So in order to line up this preliminary candidate set, what I do is the following. So as soon as a new shape is input, the signal will move up here. And when I connect this piece of wire, the first thing that will happen is through this line, it will activate the cycler modules. This is kind of like an on-off button for the entire cycling module, with the added benefit or the added function of also resetting the module when there is an interruption. So imagine that, you know, we have this machine enabled and we pick a candidate. Well, then if there is an interruption on this line and then the signal comes back, then the candidates will reset and we will start over from the first candidate. So it's both an enabling wire as well as a reset wire for the cycling module. Okay, that's what happens. So the first thing the Lifeline is going to do, the signal is going to move over here. It's going to move down, and it's going to enable the cycler module in the first place. And then simultaneously, it's going to kick off a 10 tick delay. I believe it's 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exactly. And, 11 if you count this one, if you count this transistor as well. And we're going to get two parallel lines right here. One that has a delay on it, the blue one, and the green one, which is immediate. Okay, so the green one will activate, and then the blue one will activate after 11 ticks, and it will run its signal into the Xor Gate right here, which will send a pulse into the cycler module. Okay, so let's connect that wire and look at that happen. There we go. So now a pulse, well, it's a sustained signal, but we are simulating a pulse, right? Is being sent into the machine. And the machine is activated, and we see that the combination of this is has already selected the candidate. And in this particular case, it's even more, because there is only one candidate, and also we can build the correct shape with that candidate and the remainder. This is why I chose that particular shape, right? So none of the rotation mechanism has kicked in at this point yet, and we have already found the correct shape. That is one of the benefits that the Lifeline can have. It's finding the correct shape without needing to go through all of the possible candidates until we find the correct one. So we make a lucky guess, a gamble, but it's an educated gamble, if you know what I mean. Right? So in some cases, with this simple method, we can already find the correct shape simply by picking a random candidate, a random floating piece, and see if it works for the entire shape, which in this case, you know, it works out. So let's change the signal and turn it into something that won't work. There we go. So this one will not work. And now let's get back to where we were before. So I'm going to cut this line again because there was something else I wanted to show you. At the bottom of the cycler modules, the candidates are already lined up. So we have a dual signal right here, and they both contain the final output shape, right? But the blue one, the blue wire, will run into the cycler modules, which is already going to line up the candidates or find the candidates, and it's already going to present them to the cyclers. And that will mean that the candidates are already, they're already there by the time this cycler module is activated by the lifeline. So the candidates, they are already lined up, and then the cycler will be activated and can pick the first one. That's how it works. Right, so again, I'm going to connect this wire, and we're going to see that this pulsing wire is going to contain a 1. After 10 ticks, that is. So we follow the signal along, and again, after a delay of 10 ticks, the same thing is going to happen for the next cycler module. 3, 2, 1. There we go. And this applies to all of the cycler modules. Okay, so there are 6 in total. Well, actually, there are 12 in total. 6 pairs of 2. And, every cycler unit will be activated 10 ticks after the previous one. Because, keep in mind, that as these candidates are selected, well, that is going to influence which candidates there are in the modules that come after that. That is why I built in an intentional delay, so that for each consecutive rotation module, cycler module, the candidates have get the time to get processed and presented to the cycler in the first place. That's why I built in an intentional delay there. So I'm going to put these pieces in. The mechanism will be the same for every module. So every module is going to select its first candidate, if it has one, of course. Otherwise, this is a null operation. It doesn't matter. There, and then there. So, after the rightmost cycler module, this signal will be the output signal. It's going to make a U-turn, and it's going to go all the way back to the left. So it runs onto this blue wire, and the blue wire, well, it runs all the way back to the left. It doesn't touch anything, right? It just carries the signal back from right to left. Now, after having enabled these signals, currently, as I said before, they're being sustained because we are kind of simulating this. This will, in reality, this will happen a lot faster. So now that we have enabled the signals everywhere, we're going to disable them again. And that is why I used an Xor Gate. So the signal here, the non-zero signal, will provide a 1 to the Xor Gate, and it will be sustained. So this signal will stay the way it is as long as we have this shape that we are looking for, right? So if I connect this line, then another delay of 10 ticks is going to kick in, and it's going to copy this signal, onto the other side of the Xor Gate, which will effectively shut down this signal again. Let's look at it. Let's look at how that works. There we go. Now the signal is off again. And that happens, as you may have guessed, again, the same for all modules from left to right. So here a sustained 1, and as soon as we connect the wire, we get a 0 again. So the signal is going to travel through all of the modules, turning off all of these pulses, and after that, a second time, the signal will be carried all the way from the right to the left again. Here it is. It doesn't touch any other modules anymore. It is just transferred here. And now, the last thing we are going to do is we are going to enable the pulsing wires. So just to make absolutely sure that in the initial process of starting up the machine, especially when switching from one shape to another, in order to avoid that we don't get any accidental pulses, right, I used this transistor. So this wire is the wire that is connected to the pulsing the pulsing mechanism, right? The one that we explained, the one that we talked about in the previous video. That is this wire. And as you can see, the lifeline, thanks to this transistor, it currently impedes the machine from receiving a pulse. At least a pulse or an accidental pulse from the pulsing unit. Right, so if I connect this line, we are going to enable that wire. There we go. And now a pulse could travel, if we received one, a pulse could travel through, go onto this green wire through the Xor Gate and send another pulse into the wiring module. Right, so again, this happens exactly the same way for all of the modules. There is no intentional delay here anymore because it's not needed, but this signal is connected to all of the 12 cyclers. All right, there we go. There we go. And then this signal, this will be the one to carry on all the way to the right and then down into the pulsing mechanism that we spoke about last video. Sorry. So only if the lifeline has done its thing and the machine has not found a solution, then this pulsing line will be allowed to, to pass on in the first place. Otherwise, it will be locked. Okay, so if I connect this, then we will see that our pulses will start, oscillating. This may take a few seconds. Let's see how long it takes. Curious as to why nothing is happening. Let's have a quick look at why nothing is going on. Yeah, okay, so now the machine has started pulsating, and to be quite frank, or quite honest, I don't know why it didn't do that. It's probably, I'm hoping, some tick-related issue that, doesn't manifest if we do this in real time. I haven't had any problems with it, but either way now you can see that, sporadically, we do get some pulses. So I'm going to disconnect this line again. And I'm going to show you that even without the lifeline, we can sometimes find our shapes. I believe if I press the button, yeah, exactly. So the correct shape is already found. The machine found 2 trifloats. It selected those trifloats, and what do you know? We can already build the final piece with that. So this shape is another example of a shape that we could perfectly find without having to start trying all of the, the rotations. If we try this shape is different. It won't be found. Okay, and then another thing I wanted to point out is that I told you before, in different videos, I remember saying that we have, I have a copy of the shape at the bottom here, and I would get back to the reason why. And this lifeline is the reason why. So if we follow this signal back to the right, where it comes from, if we backtrack all the way to the right, here is where the signal comes from. Here is where it splits into this blue wire and this identical copy on the green wire. The difference is that this blue wire will carry its signal from right to left instantly, and the left one, as you can see, it has a considerable delay on it. I forget by heart how many transistors there are, and I'm not going to count them, but it looks like roughly 50 or something, right? So let's just assume that there is a 50 tick delay for this green signal. So it means that the cycler modules, they get roughly 50 ticks to line up all of the candidates and present them to the cyclers, and then 50 ticks after that, the lifeline will kick in and start selecting its candidates like we just saw happen. Right? That is the reason why I am carrying two signals all the way from right to left. Now that I'm looking at it, there is no real reason why I need this delay module here and the split here. I guess technically I could have done it here as well or something, but it doesn't really matter. The thing is that the lifeline is activated roughly 50 ticks after the cycler modules get the time to, or the analyzers get time to find the floating pieces and present them to their respective cyclers, right? That's what it comes down to. And I think we have reached the end of our episode. No, hold on. There was something else I wanted to say. This delay is pretty important for a different purpose as well. So, if we get a change of shape, right? If the shape changes, then this comparing unit will initially output a 0 for the amount of time that it takes the signal to travel through all of these transistors. And that will cause an interruption on the wire. And that interruption on that wire has the added benefit of doing the following. So let's get back here. I told you that this line right here, if we have an interruption on that line, well, then the machine is going to be shut down and reset. And that is exactly the purpose of that interruption. So this line will receive it will not immediately flip from the old shape to the new shape, but it will do so after roughly 50 ticks, which creates a short interruption on this line, and that interruption is going to reset all of the modules. Right? That's a fairly important bit that I wanted to mention before before I ended this video. But having said that, I think we can wrap it up here. I'm going to reconnect this thing right here. There we go. So the machine can start pulsating again. And if I am not mistaken, I also disconnected the anti-jank device for this video, so I'm going to reconnect that one as well. And then we can wrap up the video right here. So once again, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you had fun. I hope you're looking forward to the next episode as well. We don't have a lot of episodes left, but I'm still hoping you will, you will stay for the remainder of the journey. I would be happy if you did. And I wish you all a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.